What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today, guys, we are going to be discussing some updates for Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel, Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Links, and Yu-Gi-Oh Cross Duel. Over the last couple of days, and basically the last week, we have seen a bunch of announcements and updates that are going to be coming out for these respective games, and I basically just want to recap all of the updates and upcoming updates that are coming to these respective games in this video. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So without further ado, guys, let's jump right into it. So we're going to be starting off this video by going over the Master Duel updates, and the first one that I have to discuss is, of course, the Forbidden and Limited list for Master Duel. This was announced back on the 22nd, if I remember correctly, and this list will take effect on March 1st, 2023. And here is what we have for the list. We have no bans, which is pretty interesting. For the limits, we have one, and that is Amato Iwado. We have 4 semi-limits, that being Runic Destruction, Runic Slumber, Runic Freezing Curse, and Fusion Destiny, with the unlimits being Gen X Ali Birdman, Thunder Dragon Roar, and Orcus Harpor. So, a very interesting list to say the least. I'm going to start off with the unlimits, actually. Gen X Ali Birdman, Dragon Roar, and Harpor coming off the list. I'm completely fine with it. These decks are not doing anything in Master Duel right now, so to bring them back to 3 and give a little bit of a boost to these decks is completely fine. I have no issue with it whatsoever, and I am pretty okay with this. I don't think these are going to really do anything. Amato Iwado getting limited, I can see why. I can understand why that card is getting limited. I have no real issue with that whatsoever. But then the semi-limits, and the semi-limits, for the most part, I do got a pretty big issue with it, actually. So, as you can see from the semi-limited list, it was just basically a pure Runic hit, with the only exception being Fusion Destiny. And you know what, I'll actually talk about Fusion Destiny first. That card went from limited to semi-limited. Have no issue with that whatsoever. You know, no one's doing any, like, Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer shenanigans right now. So, you know, putting a little bit more consistency into this deck, I'm completely fine with it. I have no issue with it. But the Runic hits is what I want to specifically talk about. Now, Runic getting hit on this list, I do think that Runic needs to get hit. It is not a fun deck to play against. It's just a very annoying stun deck, and I do believe that this is the right call to do, hit some cards on the Runic deck. But the problem is that they didn't hit enough. Like, they literally only hit basically like 3 cards for this entire deck, which, if we're going to really think about it, it doesn't do much. For starters, it's not enough. Like, Runic is still going to be a pain in the ass to deal with, and I just don't think these hits really do that much. All they're going to really do is just add 3 more stun cards that they didn't already have in the deck. So that's a problem. And then also, now that Sprite is a thing, and now we're seeing like a mixture of Runic and Sprite, this list literally does not hit that deck at all, because they're basically already playing 2 copies of these cards anyway, because they have to incorporate the Sprite engine. In fact, some of these cards are only being played at 1 in certain lists, because guess what? You are now playing this with Sprite as well. That's the best way to play Runic right now, is Runic Sprite. So this list, in regards to like the Runic hits, doesn't do a damn thing at all. Like, it really doesn't do anything. So I'm not gonna lie, in the context of the Runic hits, I felt like they needed to hit more. Like, screw it, hit the field spell. If there's anything that is really making the Runic deck very powerful, is Runic Fountain. If you really want to hit the consistency of this deck and really hinder this deck, you hit Fountain. Like, sure, that might make the deck unplayable, but honestly, I don't mind. This deck is just so annoying, and it's not fun to play against. So, if there was anything I believe that they should have hit, it was Fountain, more than anything. Like, not saying they couldn't hit these cards. I do think these are decent hits, but they don't do anything in the context of the game right now, especially with Runic Sprite specifically. And hell, even like regular Runic, it doesn't really do much either. Like I mentioned earlier, they can just put in more stun cards and it doesn't change anything. So, if I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not a big fan of this list. Like, the Unlimit's great. It's great to see that, you know, Fusion Destiny going to 2, completely understandable. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer isn't really doing much, so bring it back, that's fine. And then Amato Iwado, I can understand, but the Runic hits were just terrible. It doesn't do anything, and their explanation for it was also dumb. I believe they said that the reason they did it was because it was like a high percentage in terms of players using it, Like, no, duh, dude. Like, these cards are part of the runic strategy. Of course they're going to be playing these cards. What the hell does that actually mean? Like, that was probably one of the dumbest statements that I think I have ever seen in my life. But that's what we have for the ban list. Overall, it's a mid one, I'm not gonna lie. It just really doesn't change a whole lot, especially towards Runic. Runic is still gonna be a very annoying deck to deal with, but hey, at least it did bring some cards back for the other strategies. I am a big fan of that, but that's it for the Forbidden Limited list, so let's go into our next update. And God, this update's just hilarious. So we actually have an emergency ban list for the current event that's going on, which is the XYZ Festival, and the emergency ban card is Flying Sea. Now, I just had to talk about this. I originally wasn't going to talk about this because it's just so dumb, but I think because of it being so dumb, it kind of just made me change my mind on this. How the hell did you miss this card? Like, when I heard the emergency ban list came out and it was for this card, I was actually really shocked by that. And to be fair, I haven't played enough of the XYZ Festival, and I didn't actually notice people actually running Flying Sea, or at least I never encountered it in the few games that I did play the XYZ Festival. So I just assumed that this card was banned, but no, this card was actually not banned in the slightest for this event, which I'm not even mad about that. I'm just more confused because out of all cards you could have missed for this event, how in the hell did you miss Flying Sea? This card literally locks your opponent out of being able to XYZ summoning, and this is the card that you just missed. Now, to be fair, if we're going to be completely honest, accidents happen, and at the very least, they dealt with it as soon as possible when they were seeing that people were using Flying Sea and locking your opponent out of XYZ summoning. Obviously, they put their foot down and they actually dealt with this as soon as humanly possible, and they emergency banned it. So thankfully, they actually dealt with this card, because obviously Flying Sea in this event, it makes the whole entire event pointless, because the whole point of this is building the best XYZ deck that you possibly can and taking it into this event. So having a card that literally locks your opponent out of XYZ summoning, it just makes you think, like, what the hell's the point of the event if your opponent is just going to lock you out of XYZ summoning? So this card getting hit absolutely makes sense. I think it's just funny more than anything because they completely missed it, but it's a human error. It happens sometimes, and thankfully they immediately dealt with it and banned the card. So good on Konami for that, and now the XYZ Festival can continue on without having to deal with Flying Sea. So I wanted to kind of mention that because, again, it was just hilarious that they didn't even hit this card. But let's go into our final update for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and that is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Power Pro collaboration. Now, for people that are unaware about this collaboration, for basically the last 2 years now, Konami has been in collaboration with Power Pro, which is another Konami-owned IP that's basically like this chibi, like, baseball type of game, if I remember correctly. And basically what they've been doing for the last 2 years is that every year they release 2 cards. One card that's completely unique, and it's a Power Pro card, and the other one is an alt art, and every year they basically release these 2 cards. And for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, we're getting the 2 unique Power Pro cards in the form of Power Pro Lady Sisters and Power Pro Knight Sisters, which is pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie, and kind of surprised by this because, you know, I wasn't really expecting these cards to come to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, nor Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, because this update also is in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links as well. This is being released for that as well, which is really cool as well. It is kind of unfortunate that they aren't doing the alt arts of the other 2 cards, which, if you don't know, Dark Magician and Reinforcement of the Army basically got, you know, reprints in these little collection packs that basically are in the art style of, like, these Power Pro cards, or at least for Dark Magician. Reinforcement of the Army has a bunch of Power Pro characters on it, like Charging Forward, which I actually think is pretty cool. So it's a little unfortunate that we didn't get these alt arts, but you know what, maybe later down the line, maybe they'll do this collab again and basically release the alt arts for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and Duel Links. We don't really know, and these updates are actually up right now as of recording this video, so you guys can go and get these cards yourselves, as well as in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel specifically, you also get a new icon that has one of the Power Pro characters on it, and it's very simple to get these. You just have to log into Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, and for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, if you log in for the next 3 days, you'll be able to get the icon for day 1, one of the cards for day 2. I believe it's Lady Sisters you get day 2, and in day 3 you get the other Power Pro in Night Sisters. And for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, I believe you just have to log in once and you get both cards. So they're out right now, so if you log into both Duel Links and Master Duel, you'll be able to get these cards. They're not really good, if I'm going to be completely honest. They're just vanilla monsters that don't really do anything. Like, they are searchable with different cards, but I don't think these cards are worth it in terms of playability wise, but that's not the point of these cards. These cards are just meant to be like a cool, like I said, collaboration between these two franchises. So it's a really cool update. It's anything too crazy, but I do think it's a little cool collaboration that they're doing. I hope we get to see a lot more collaborations down the line, but that's pretty much it for the Master Duel updates. So let's go into our one and only Cross Duel update. So like I just mentioned, we only have one new update that has been confirmed to be coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel, and that is a new character coming in the form of Revolver, aka Varus from Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns, coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel. In fact, this will be the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns character that is coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links outside of, obviously, the Day 1 characters in Playmaker and Blue Angel. Up to this point, they haven't really done anything for Reigns and 7 specifically, except for 7's did have, I guess, the raid boss with, like, Yuga and the Magnum Overload, so I guess you can kind of say that. But I'm pretty sure Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns has not really had anything in the slightest, unless there was a raid boss that I missed, but I'm pretty sure that this will be the first completely unique update that is specific towards Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns. And then obviously Duel Monsters through Arc 5 have been seeing characters added to their roster, with Duel Monsters and 5Ds having 5 characters in total for their respective series, and then GX, Zexal, and Arc 5 having 4, which would mean that this would be the 3rd character for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns, and unfortunately 7's is still at 2, but I do think that will change in the near future. But Revolver coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel, very excited for that. I do want to bring up the fact that they are doing the Season 1 design. I've seen a lot of mixed complaints from this. A lot of people wanted to see the Season 2 design. I think most people agree that the Season 2 design was better than the Season 1 design, and although I do agree with that, it does kind of make sense why they're doing the Season 1 design when you really think about it. A lot of the characters from Cross Duel is kind of like their early adaptations of those characters. Like, I think of Akiza, for example. She still refers to herself as the Black Witch, and she basically is still in that kind of mindset where, she thinks of herself as a monster because of everyone calling her a monster. So, Revolver being in his Season 1 outfit does make a lot of sense. Now, would I like to see the Season 2 design? Of course, I still do think it's the better design than his first one, but I do understand why they're doing the Season 1 design based off the way that they have been portraying the other characters. In fact, when you look in the context of Reigns' characters, Playmaker is still fighting the Knights of Hanoi, to kind of get revenge from the Lost Incident, and then Blue Angel is still like the entertainment duelist, so it kind of makes sense for Revolver to be in his Season 1 outfit. But to me, it doesn't really matter if it's the Season 1 outfit or the later season outfit. We're still getting Revolver and Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel, which is exciting. We're also getting it Borreload as obviously his ace monster, which makes a whole lot of sense. Very excited to be able to get Borreload in Cross Duel, and excited to see what this card is going to do, because obviously in the context of Cross Duel, their effects are going to be different because of the way that Cross Duel is played. So very excited for this character and his ace monster, and just the cards that are going to be coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel. It's going to be pretty exciting. But that's going to pretty much be it for the Cross Duel news. Again, we didn't really have too much for that, so let's dive in to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links news. So for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links content, for the most part, for upcoming updates in March, most of the stuff that we have is basically stuff we've already seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. The Duel Links Mission Research, the Turbo Duel Grand Prix, the Tour Guide Mission Bingo. In mid-March, we're going to be seeing the Tag Duel Tournaments, and then in late March, we're going to have Mission Circuits. So we're not going to really discuss those. Again, those have always been out for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. These are just like the stereotypical, events that are going to be happening throughout Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, so I'm not going to really go over that in this video, but what I am going to be discussing is the hints of the 2 new characters that are going to be potentially coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. Now, unlike the Revolver one that was basically confirmed, these ones are going to be a lot more speculative, but I think we kind of have a general idea of what to expect. And the first one that we're going to be having is in mid-March, and the information that we have on this character is, if you get any closer, you'll be burned by Inferno. Now, if you guys remember the video that I did recently for Duel Links, where we had the whole leak about, you know, Rush Duels potentially coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, you might remember that I did mention that Quinton was in the data leaks as well for potentially coming into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. And I believe there was a line in one of the episodes, I think it was in one of the duels that Quinton was in, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm probably misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure he said a line similar to this. Obviously, you know, this is in the context of like the dub, so if I remember correctly in the sub, it's like, if you get any closer, you'll burn by Hell's Inferno or something like that. So to me, this makes a lot of sense for it to be Quinton. Like I said earlier, we had the data leaks for it. It makes a lot of sense for this to be Quinton, and I think this is pretty much a shoe-in for Quinton coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, which I'm pretty excited for. Quinton was a character where, although I will be honest, I did like Quattro a little bit more than Quinton. I thought Quinton was a pretty interesting character, and I actually did like Quinton for the most part. Again, he's not too crazy of a character, I'm not gonna lie. You know, even like his father, Vectrix or Tron, whatever way you want to call him, I do prefer more than Quinton, but I thought Quinton was still a pretty cool character. But the second character that will be coming in late March is a little bit more vague, to be honest. So this is what we have in terms of the late March character. There is no hope, there is only despair. This one is pretty interesting, and unlike the first one we have, I'm not really sure what this one can be, if I'm going to be completely honest, because it's just so vague and so generic. Like, this literally can be any antagonist in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise, and honestly, it would make sense. The one that I've seen speculated the most, in fact, Duel Links meta is kind of predicting that this is going to be the character, is Zone, which, if you remember, is the final antagonist of the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's anime, as the potential character that could be coming in late March. And that one is a very interesting pick, to say the least, especially since that's the final antagonist for Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D, so that does kind of cause some questions on, like, okay, if this is Zone, does that mean that it's over with? Like, they're done doing 5D's characters? Like, is that how this is going to work? Like, we really don't know. We haven't really gotten to a series yet where they would be basically out of characters and would be basically done with giving characters for that respective world. Although, to be fair though, they still have plenty of characters they can do. Like, they still are missing some of the Dark Signers, like Roman Goodwin and Misty. You know, there's like Sherry LeBlanc I still think they should probably do. I mean, she was a very important character in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's, her whole connection to Iliaster and what happened to her parents. Like, I feel like that's a character that should be in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links at some point, though I don't think this would be Sherry. This line makes no sense in regards to her. And I guess, to be fair, it doesn't even have to be like a 5D's character. It literally can be any villain. So, like, I guess for like Duel Monsters, the only villains we have left is like the Ciel Orichalcos characters. So probably it could potentially be Darts, I guess, but that kind of does fall in the same line. Like, would they be done with this series? Especially since, you know, you still have Valen, Alistair, you know, Raphael, you know, you still have the other members of that group. So I don't know, that would be weird. You can say the same thing about like Darkness from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, you know, obviously the final villain of that respective series. So would that mean like you don't add in Fujiwara Yusuke? Fubukiyo is another character. Like, there are still some characters for GX they can do, so I don't know. And I guess, to be fair, I'm assuming like if they're doing the final villains that they would be done with the series. That's more than likely not going to be the case. I feel like that would be a dumb decision to do, because you still have characters you can do. I feel like, you know, the excuse that, you know, doing the final villain means that you're done with it, although it would still make sense for them to do the final villain as the last one, but they could change it up. It's honestly not a guaranteed thing that happens with this. You know, this would be really the first time that we've ever reached a final like boss character for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, so we really don't know how this system is going to work. We don't know if like when they do the final villain that's going to be it, or are they willing to still do other characters. If I have to make a prediction, I do think it will be a 5Ds character, especially when you look at like late March and even like mid-March, and they have like a lot of like 5Ds related stuff, like you know, the mission circuit that's coming out. You know, you have the Turbo Duel Grand Prix that's coming out, and you've seen quite a bit of like 5Ds related stuff, so it makes sense that it would be a 5Ds villain. I think Zone does make a lot of sense when you really think about it, but I can also see it being Roman Goodwin because of the fact that we also know that Spiderweb will be coming out in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links from what I saw, so that might be another character that they could do. And honestly, if I was to choose between the two, I probably would pick Roman Goodwin, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, don't get me wrong, I would like to see Zone come to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, although that would mean that Time Lords would come to Duel Links, which, yeah, I don't know if I think Duel Links is really ready for that. Time Lords can really be a pain, especially in the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, especially like when you look in the context of what the potential like skills would be for Zone. So like, yeah, that would be a pretty scary thing to come out for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, but we would have to wait and see, obviously. But honestly, I wouldn't mind Roman Goodwin being the character. Again, I do think they should maybe get the rest of the Dark Signers in before they actually go into like Season 5 territory, in my personal opinion, but maybe they won't go back and do those characters because they're so far ahead. I mean, the last character they introduced, I'm pretty sure, was Aporia, so maybe they won't go back and do those characters. I personally think they should, because I do think it's kind of stupid not to have those other characters, especially since Roman was basically the leader of the Dark Signers. Like, yes, Rex ended up being like the end-all be-all for the Dark Signers, but it doesn't change the fact that Roman Goodwin was literally the main like leader of the Dark Signers, and that not have him in the game, like, that to me just makes no sense whatsoever. So for me personally, although I do think Zone is a very good choice and I can really see it being him, I honestly think it should be Roman Goodwin if they are going to do a 5Ds villain and wait just a little longer for Zone. I do think Zone will still come in the near future, but I think maybe they should try and do the other villains first before fully committing to Zone. Like, I really do like the idea of having, you know, the final boss be like the last character to come to that respective world. And yes, I know that's very predictable, but when you think about it in the context of it, it makes a lot of sense. So for me, I would like it to be Roman Goodwin, but I can also see the argument for Zone, and really anything from the first trilogy. I don't think they'll do anything for like the second generation, like Zexal, Arc 5, and Vrains, especially since the potential of like Quinton coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links in mid-March. I don't think that makes sense to have another Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal character. I mean, obviously the one problem that I'm already kind of realizing with the Quinton thing is that we are literally in the middle with the Garag event, so that kind of puts some conflict into it as well. But I'm still pretty high that it's going to be Quinton, especially with the data leaks. But that's pretty much it that we have for the Duel Links news, and that's pretty much it for all of the news in regards to these three respective games. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on all the updates that we've discussed in this video, and which one was your guys' favorite out of the entire batch. And let me know, and I'm very curious your guys' thoughts on this. Who do you think would be the character that would be coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links in late March? I already give my prediction on who I think it could potentially be, but I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on it, and who would you want to see come in late March and even mid-March. Like, if you don't think it's going to be Quinton and you think it's going to be another character, let me know. I'm very curious of what you guys might think this character would be for mid-March as well. I'm still very confident it will be Quinton, but I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on the potential characters coming to Duel Links down in the comments. Your guys' thoughts on Revolver coming to Cross Duel, and then obviously your thoughts on the Forbidden Limited list for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, as well as the collaboration with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Power Pros. So with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.